Well, hello there.
Hello there.
Hmm.
I was about to do. I'll tell you what I was about to do. I was about to do the RoboCop theme by mistake. You know how obviously I've been doing the musical intros
Yeah.
because originally before we hit record, I was gonna be like the man in black,
Hmm.
and then for some reason when we hit the button, my mind went dun 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 dun. So I think just in general, Joe, I'm not okay and I need help. But yeah, as you could tell by my immediate blunder, we're talking about Men in Black today, and I'm
Hmm.
quite excited, really.
Yeah. Spacemen and aliens, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, some spacemen, they're aliens, and then the people who deal with the space who are men. It's a great one to end the season on, really.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really think of it as a blockbuster, I just it's just I think it was the perfect film to end this season on in
Yeah.
that
It's a
it's
fun
not really
one.
contentious. We've both seen it before,
Hmm.
and yeah, as you say, it's a fun one.
Just so people know, I've been a little bit ill recently, so if I sound like I'm dying, that's that. But we're gonna push through that nonetheless.
Yeah, we're still a COVID-free podcast though, so you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about any of that. Yeah, Men in Black. What year was this? Was this
Yeah. I was gonna say.
97? I
Do, do.
think it was
Yeah.
90. Oh no. Wait,
97.
was it? Oh, okay. I thought I was going to say 90, 95 after that.
No,
Okay,
no, it's
nice.
97.
I don't know why I asked the question again. Once again, this is an occasion where I have the box in front of my face, and I could just turn it. I could turn it to the
That's
back
a lot of
end,
effort, though.
and I could have a look. But then that would require me to read the small print. Yeah, 1997. It's on there.
But yeah.
But yeah, Man in Black. Speaking of a film, not last time, but
Mm.
the time before that when we talked about Predator. Speaking of like a film with contentious sequels, obviously we sort of revisited
Yeah.
Predator, and I made the case that I don't think the sequels in that are as contentious, bar the most recent one. Men in Black, however, has two sequels. Actually, I guess three technically now.
Free, but
I think that's more of like a soft reboot, but yeah, really. But this is a case of like, yeah, the original was gold. We should have stopped there.
Well, I remember. I think I like one and two from what I haven't watched two in a while.
Yeah, same.
Um, but I do remember liking two. But three and I haven't seen the recent one, but three
Yeah,
was not so good for me. So
three kind of. I guess because they wanted it to look like the 1960s or something, they
yeah.
made everything yellow and sunny, and it all looked really weird. Like it looked like episode two. Oh god, I've already done it. Okay. The last two times I have brought it up in this podcast have been by complete accident. This is not
You say
orchestrated.
that every
No, no,
time.
no, no, no. The other times, I will admit, obviously, were purposeful. But I knew it was probably going to come up, but I didn't think it was going to come up in the first 5 minutes of the podcast. But yeah, it reminds me of like like episode two on Geonosis, or in like on
Hmm.
Naboo when it's like really sunny or whatever. It's like the lighting does not complement the era of the CGI or whatever. That's the third one for me. It's just, yeah. I mean, I like Josh Brolin's performance in it, doing a Tommy
Yeah.
Lee Jones impersonation, but I don't know. And then the second one, it definitely feels like with the second one that they tried to go a little weirder in a few places.
Mm.
I think it didn't work, but there are bits of it that I enjoy,
Yeah.
but there are also bits of it where I'm like, I don't know. That one's really one where I just don't know how I feel about it as a movie because
Mm.
I've probably watched it maybe like 2 years ago or something, like at the earliest. Or you know the in terms of like how current we are
Yeah.
now.
No,
I maybe watched it like 2 years ago at the last time
yeah.
or whatever.
I'd have to rewatch two, but there are scenes I remember that I'm like, oh, I really love those scenes. Those are fun.
Yeah,
It's
like
still a
I
fun
like when they're
film.
I like when they're in the Twig guys' apartments,
Yeah.
like and they're all hitting their heads on the ceiling. Like that's quite funny, but um, I mean, it's not the most intelligent of jokes, but then there's also some pretty lowbrow stuff in the first one. But Yeah, I feel like the second one and all the other sequels, they're contentious in the respect that there's a certain, like, every time I bring up Men in Black, I always kind of hear the same things of like, oh, the second one's really bad, third one's really bad. This was before the fourth one was out, so I have not really spoken to anyone about the fourth one.
Yeah, we'll keep that one out.
Yeah, there's no point even going there. But yeah, I don't really know how I feel about them, but it's got that reputation of everyone feels like the second one and the third one suck, basically.
Yeah, people always love the original.
Everyone agrees that the original is good, and I guess we can talk about the original now. I didn't mean to go on too long about that, but I guess it was worth bringing up the context of this is another franchise film where the first one was the best.
They do it to any successful film, so it's, to be expected.
Yeah, there's exceptions, but usually that's because like a sequel flopped or something. Like I no doubt believe that studios thought Blues Brothers could have run for several sequels, but with John Belushi's death and Blues Brothers 2000, I think that idea was shot down immediately. But like that, things like that where that happens. But yeah.
Men in Black, Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, eh?
Yeah, what a pairing. They really, like... It feels like obviously, it's not a family-friendly film, strictly speaking, but it definitely... I don't think it has much gore, but it does have, obviously, violence and murder and stuff like that, but it's not like... It's quite visceral, obviously, with the noises of, like, the cockroach sucking out Egger's skin and stuff like that, but...
but it doesn't show too much most of the time.
Yeah,
there's little snippets,
but yeah, I guess in a sense though, it's kind of like it's got that kind of like buddy cop dynamic, but in a more family friendly environment where like they're not like being like horrible and abusive to each other and calling each other gay or something. Like in a Shane Black film, I don't know, like.
Yeah,
like Lethal Weapon. I doubt Lethal Weapon has that much homophobia, really. But there's like, what I mean is that there was a certain tone of those.
Yeah,
films.
They're fucking with each other in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah,
whereas in this, they're just playing.
Yeah, and it's perfectly matched in that. Yeah, Lethal Weapon, they're both kind of messing with each other. Whereas in this one, it's just Tommy Lee Jones is playing it straight the entire time, and I was about to say Will Ferrell there, but no, Will Smith, not Will Ferrell. He plays the perfect sort of counter and foil to him. Yeah. They're complete opposites.
He makes it look good.
That's one of my favorite lines from the second one. Is I drive the new hotness, old and busted, new hotness, and then Tommy Lee Jones gets in the car, old busted hotness. But yeah, I guess the plot is Will Smith is a cop in LA, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
And he one night he's chasing down a perp, and it turns out that the perp is an alien, and an alien mercenary working for, I guess we'll call him like the Cockroach or Mr. Cockroach, but basically he's an alien that's a giant cockroach. And he comes down, I think, sort of same night or like a night after, and he gets into Vincent D'Onofrio's skin. Vincent D'Onofrio, famous actor, was in Full Metal Jacket. I didn't notice him for years on end. He just, because obviously he's contorting his face so much. I never recognized him, and his voice is completely different.
Yeah.
So that was a real shock to me. But anyway, he basically empties out Vincent D'Onofrio's. He sort of like he slurps him like a fruit or something.
And then he Hannibal Lecters him.
Yeah, he gets inside, and then there's great comedy that comes from that. But basically, this giant cockroach somehow manages to fit into Vincent D'Onofrio, and he's our villain, basically. And he's come to grab this thing called the micro galaxy, which is like a galaxy, but it's micro and it's hidden on Earth, basically. And it's like I think it's a source of fuel or something. Obviously, it has a life contained in it, but it's very precious, basically, is the general gist of it. And Will Smith is eventually recruited by Tommy Lee Jones quite early on, and he joins the Men in Black, which is basically this secret sort of organization, sort of, I guess, by the government, but also sort of, over the head of the government. It's so secret that, like, the soldiers and stuff like that don't really know about it.
Yeah.
But they do a whole recruitment thing. Will Smith joins up. He's kind of goofy. He doesn't really get it, and there's a lot of shenanigans that happen from that. And Tommy Lee Jones is kind of done with his shit from the start, but he thinks there's potential in Will Smith, and they do a bunch of sort of, I guess like missions together, sort of like like fetch quests and side quests or whatever. But they do like a lot of like little things and little investigations here and there until they get on the cockroaches or Vincent D'Onofrio's trail. And then there's a whole sort of story that sort of spirals from that. They've got to stop him from stealing the microgalaxy, and by result of him stealing the microgalaxy, the Earth getting blown up or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just a regular day on the job, but it's like Will Smith's sort of first day on the job is this sort of this new alien private investigator type.
Which is it's kind of the best way to films do it a lot, where it's like, here's the new recruit, the new player in town, and it's like we get to see the perspective of him seeing all these crazy aliens for the first time, as same as the film is showing us the same thing. So it works very well in storytelling, basically.
As a general thing, but I mean, I don't know. It's like, obviously, this is my problem with those sorts of stories, though, is that it's sort of like in Truman Show, where like we see the villains behind the camera and controlling the world that Truman inhabits. We see them in the background when they cut to them, and it kind of like, as well, it's very early on. It's like in this, like we start with Tommy Lee Jones in the desert, and he finds a weird alien, and it pops out and it's going to kill people, and he explodes it, and it turns into goo. It's a very good scene, but it kind of undercuts the fact that, really, it would have been probably more effective if Will Smith had been, It's sort of similar to Independence Day, where we should have seen what Will Smith saw first. But
well,
it's a good sort of setup for the film, in that it's about retirement and growing old and stuff like that, because his partner gets old and he has to wipe his memory.
But it's a good scene, but also it's because you also want the film is about aliens, and they're like, we need to show the audience what the film is about right off the bat. Is kind of what they've done. It gets to the point, So it's like alien, and it's like so they do jump right into it, which is again unfortunate. But...
Well, it has its own advantages and disadvantages, but I think the main sort of thing that what you were saying about Will Smith being our perspective character as the audience into it, is that differently, obviously the way, the chronological order of where it's edited or whatever kind of helps, but also doesn't help. It has that pro and con aspect to it. But Will Smith is so likable, so endearing, and so charismatic, and just so sort of like about it and on the level, that he is the perfect actor to really play this role, basically.
I mean,
of coming into this world, and because he's surprised, but he's also acting surprised in a funny way, which you can clearly see when, like, you saw his early acting career in his own show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where he's endearing but also funny.
Well, it's the same thing. Will Smith just has this way, because he's very sort of nonchalant, but also like, that's cool, and it's like, I've never seen that before. That's cool, but it's also like, I dig, as you said, I dig it. I'm on board with this. Let's go bust some alien ass or whatever.
Yeah, he's always trying to figure stuff out and come up with solutions, even if he doesn't know the answer to them. And it can sometimes be slapstick or sort of comedy, like, because he's out of his depth, but he's on the level, as I said, like, in that he knows to try and get on the level.
Yeah, it's funny the way, because obviously when they have the whole recruitment thing, and they've got all these, top-notch soldiers, and and then there's Will Smith, who's just like, he's a New York cop, because I've realised it's set in New York.
Yeah, it's probably New York. Yeah, it's just, I think it's the at nighttime it looks like LA, but the city at daytime does look like New York.
But he's obviously way more, again, nonchalant, and he's obviously very smart cop, and he's like, that's why Tommy Lee Jones' character sees potential in him, and he's like, he's a worthy man in black, as it were. But he's also just, it's almost like they portray it as sometimes it's that street smart of. I love the scene with obviously the shooting range and everyone's shooting the aliens.
That entire sequence is great, but I think at that point it is because he thinks differently. In a more unique way, but it's also that he's in a room where they're all shooting at cardboard cutouts of monsters, and he recognizes almost in a fourth wall breaky kind of way, but not going that far, that this is ridiculous, and that he might as well just sort of think out of the side of the box because it's so dumb.
Yeah.
He recognizes the context does not fit, and so in his mind, it's like, he only shoots once, and he shoots the little girl right through the fucking forehead.
Yeah. Why did little Tiffany have to die? I saw this little girl out in amongst all these aliens with a quantum physics book, and I'm like, those books are way too advanced for her.
She's planning something.
But that is why he fits in perfectly to the Men in Black, because he's just so. He's like, I'm rolling with this. There's aliens, there's all sorts of things going on, but there's a little girl who looks real sus, and it's like, that really is kind of how the film portrays these. It's like, the simplest of things, which is something that I think the film does really well. Is it does sort of merge, basic everyday life with very hidden, like, yes, this dog, that's an alien. Elvis, he's an alien. That building in New York, that's a spaceship. It's like it does this really weird thing where it fits everything. Everything's like a secret thing, but it does it quite well for the most part.
Well, it's like any other sort of secret society story, but the difference is that it has that tongue-in-cheek approach where you don't question all of the mechanics of the world. You're just sort of brought into this kind of weird and wacky world, and it's kind of like anytime you have, like, if this was like a tour or whatever, if you're going on like a tour or whatever into the Men in Black sort of headquarters, I could imagine Tommy Lee Jones's character Kay being the sort of tour guide, the no nonsense tour guide who just has an answer for everything, but it's also simultaneously answering your question and also denying it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like calling you stupid for even asking the question, because it's just like, okay. I have an answer for all of how this works. It's just not the answer you want, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it kind of works in the film, because it's like, Will Smith's character Jay, he brings up all sorts of stuff, and he's like, how does this work and all this, and Tommy Lee Jones is just with everything, because obviously he's a veteran when it comes to the Alien game, but everything fits into the world, as you say, like everything's sort of hidden. Everyone's like, there are aliens among us in the world of Men in Black, but it's both hidden in I wouldn't say a sensible way, but in weird ways, but ways that are almost. I mean, it's like most of it's like how Jay says it is when they go and see Frank the dog.
Yeah.
Immediately you think, it's the weird guy that's next to the dog who's the alien, and he's like, that's a terrible disguise.
No, he's a human, isn't he? And then the dog's
the dog's that's a bait and switch, but most of it is just like, that's so obvious it can't be true, and then obviously there's
he is thinking outside the box, and he needs to for all the encounters they have later on. So
I just the pen desk thing though as well, or the table thing is just as emblematic of that though as well, which is also just as funny. All these military men are given a pen and a clipboard, and they can't figure out how to write on it.
Well, it's like a really crappy pencil and stuff.
I think that's obviously part of. I think with both of those things, it's like there's a degree of purposefulness with it, but there's also a degree of like, this is just a ridiculous sort of, almost like in how Brazil has that ridiculous sort of comedic farcity to its like bureaucracy or whatever. It's like, okay, they are just shit pencils and they are just shit paper, and then obviously going back to the outside box, thinking of the main character, he pulls the table, makes a really loud screechy noise, everyone stares at him. It's quite funny. But I mean, and then you have other characters in there, like you have the very weird female sort of support lead who works at the morgue, but initially she kind of comes in to interview Jay, or like come and speak with him as if she's like an investigative journalist, but then she's a morgue sort of specialist. I guess that's just because she has connections to the police or whatever, but that's more just like she's sort of dressed like she would be like a reporter or something in that scene. But and then that's the first of many instances of Kay just being very, very haphazardly with the neuralizer. He blinks that thing off like he's raging. Yeah. And Will Smith comments on that. He's like, "Are you gonna give people brain cancer with that?" Like,
well, isn't there, there's one where literally doesn't Will Smith? He has to like pull his sunglasses on in the last second because he just whips it out, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
you got to give me warning for that.
Yeah, it's great. That's the thing is that like I guess similar to like the proton pack in Ghostbusters, that's like a fundamental gimmick of the film is the neuralizer. It's how they remain secret, and that works into the mechanics of the world.
Yeah,
you know, as you're talking about, with like obviously all the aliens really, you know, integrate really well. You know, obviously the villain is the exception to that, but as you say, it's like, you know, that's why I guess the secret society is as interesting as it is. It's not like in Harry Potter where it's just like, okay, all of the wizards and that they just go to Diagon Alley, whereas this is like as you were talking about, it works. Basically.
Yeah, it blends. The aliens are amongst humans, and there is obviously you could compare the Men in Black headquarters as like the Diagon Alley of this is where all the aliens and humans are mingling. Whatever,
it's like a combination between like the Diagon Alley or the Ministry of Magic.
Yeah,
but it's also like an airport.
Yeah, it's like an airport terminal. Everyone's like, "Huh, what are you bringing into the planet?" There's all sorts of aliens coming in and out.
Yeah, don't talk to him. He's grouchy. It's this big blob.
Yeah.
It's I mean, in terms of the plot, it's obviously once again it's kind of a sort of simple story, but it's like I mean, I don't think we really need to get into spoilers too much. Just some more like specific instances of things that we find funny. Like, I mean, that's basically this film in a nutshell. It's like, obviously, I think similar to some other comedies, it's not like gag of a minute, but like there's so many memorable moments in there.
Yeah,
akin to these famous comedies like Hot Fuzz, say, or something.
Like each scene you'll have like the occasional, serious scene, but most scenes have like a gimmick at some point where it's like, there's some crazy stuff happening. This is a bit funny.
Yeah,
someone will crack a joke or Will Smith mostly.
And obviously, it's good that in a comedy film, and I think it's probably just a staple of good comedies like this. It's probably, obviously you have Zucker Brother films or whatever, or like those like really surrealist sort of like Naked Gun-esque films, where it's like we don't take anything seriously. Maybe we take the threat semi-seriously.
Yeah.
But in most good comedies, the actual plot is taken seriously. It's just the framing devices or how it's sort of portrayed or expressed to the viewer is comedic sometimes. And that's really why this film works quite well. It's like the villain is this creepy, sometimes funny, but this creepy sort of body horror monster. That's obviously subtle body horror, but.
Well, I mean, but even then, because the first scene he walks in, he negotiates and he talks to his wife. The wife was the guy he killed.
Water.
Yeah.
War.
It's the way he talks, and then obviously he's like, "Oh, do I not look human enough? I can pull my face back like this."
Edgar, your skin's falling off. Oh. He looks to the mirror. He looks back. He pulls his skin all the way back to the top of his head.
Better?
It's not better.
But it's funny because he's like, the alien's just, he's just kind of a chill guy. He's just silly. But then obviously he wants to murder people.
He still has like human emotions and stuff, like comparable human emotions.
Yeah.
It's like he can interact. He just doesn't care to sort of like.
Yeah.
He doesn't care or has the ability to perfectly blend in. He can blend in just enough for it to work. For him to sort of be seen as like this weird guy with maybe like a skin condition or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's creepy when like at the end he's like rotting because it's essentially wearing a corpse. So.
And then he just busts out of it at the end anyway. So.
Yeah, that's actually a really good special effect, I think, that has
Yeah.
actually aged quite well in terms of CG. The cockroach.
Hmm.
It still looks a bit off in places, but I mean, again, it's like this is the '90s, and this thing looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, as
Like,
I think I said, because we haven't actually spoken about the CGI yet, but I said before we started recording, in terms of CGI and stuff, there's a lot of stuff going on, obviously, aliens and things, practical effects, CGI, but it all kind of blends together fairly well. Some of it is a little bit dated, and I think it's meant to look really wacky anyway. These are all sorts of weird creatures and aliens and stuff, so even the unbelievable stuff they can get away with it, because it's
yeah.
if it looks off, that's fine. It's just how it is.
Yeah. It's sort of the best way that you can sort of help your effects like age gracefully is to make them look less photoreal, basically.
Yeah.
Like nobody watches Roger Rabbit or like Space Jam, the original. Maybe in terms of the composite, but like, imagine like just forget like the real life elements. They're just old Looney Tunes cartoons or Disney or something like that. No one really watches those and goes, oh, this is aged terribly in terms of its animation quality. If it's Disney, it's aged terribly in terms of its morals. But we don't have to get into that because that's it's not a part of this discussion. But you know what I mean. Like basically, all of those things though were designed to be not human. They were supposed to not look like people. And then, ironically, the ones that look like people are the ones that have aged the worst in terms of cartoons. So that I recently saw the new Space Jam movie. I'll briefly talk about this. And just because we're on the topic of CG, there's a lot of horrible CG in that film. It just doesn't. It's really ugly, and I think I'll post like a brief review or something at some point. I do not recommend Space Jam 2. Maybe upon a second rewatching, maybe if I'm like more liquored up, I'll enjoy it. But I watched it with a group of like 4 friends, and we were bored by the final act. Like it was, which I can't say about like other films I've seen recently. But yeah, the CGI though is really bad, and they turned the Looney Tunes characters who were, you know, made for 2D. At one point, they turned them into 3D, and they look awful.
Yeah.
Some of them look better than others, but it's that meme of the the hit the upgrade key, and then it's like, fuck, go back. That's what it is what it is. It's really bad, but that's, I guess, the difference is that these were graphics that were designed for this film.
Yeah.
They do look off, but they were designed to look off for this film and how it looks.
And I mean, Men in Black does have a sense of style to itself. It has an image, and as you said, we've got the neuralizer, the gadgets, the aliens, and Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones themselves are part of the style of it, to be honest. So
even some of the miniature work is really good. I'm pretty sure that the end sort of spaceship crashing is a miniature, obviously composited in on them real footage. But
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's how they did it.
No, I think they did have a miniature of that building. Yeah.
But yeah, those miniatures look great. I would say that there are bits in the second and third one that really don't work for the films in the way that this one does. Because as well in this one, there's a lot of practical effects to break up the CGI. The CGI is mostly when they're in like a lot of, like in fast motion or whatever, or it's the big cockroach or whatever. But like say for instance that monster or the alien at the beginning that's hiding in the Mexican man or the Latin man anyway, the Latino man. You know, like he's got that weird sort of like practical sort of eye that sort of flips and looks behind him. But when he turns to CGI, it's different. But that most of it's practical because it's just a guy underneath puppeting it or whatever. But in the second one, I will say that like the Johnny Knoxville snake head looks awful. Johnny Knoxville, by the way, is the guy in the red jacket who has the twin sort of smaller head who is in his backpack.
Oh yeah.
That one is. So. I did see that recently. That has aged really poorly.
Yeah.
And then there's also some of the CGI for that guy who has the clones who fly around.
No, it's been a while.
Basically, so there's the guy who Jay arrested. Who he's basically he's in like a big black cloak and he's got like 3 little mini hims who ride around on like sort of like disc. You know how Yoda has
Yeah.
disc, that sort of floaty
Yeah.
chair or whatever. They ride around on those. They look really bad, like really bad.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Men in Black 1 at least. Yeah,
Yeah, and I just because we were talking about the sequels earlier, I just wanted to briefly bring it up.
yeah,
There's no need
that's
to
fine.
go any further
I
into it.
remember. Yeah, there's definitely some bits that aren't as good in the sequels, but I'd have to rewatch some of them. But
Yeah, I'm only commenting on the effects there. By the way,
Yeah.
I'm just that's just because those are fresh in those man. Those are fresh in my mind because
Yeah.
I do remember them quite vividly. But yeah, besides that, anyway, with regards to the film though, I mean, in terms of anything else, like there's obviously the iconic Men in Black theme, which is
yeah, I was
fantastic.
gonna say, obviously, Will Smith does he's in the little music video he does for it, isn't there? So
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the benefit of having a star like Will Smith.
yeah,
In your film in the 90s, is that there's a chance he'll also be able to do some of the music, and it'd be really catchy.
there were a few
'Cause obviously
films.
He started off as a musician.
And there were a few films in the 90s where they're like, we need like a music video, a theme song for our movie.
Yeah.
And there's a few films, because I remember, didn't Godzilla do that as well? It's like they had,
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
they did, because I think I had a copy of it where they had, before the film, you have the music video, and it's like, I don't really care about the music video.
Oh,
but
are you talking about the Roland Emmerich?
Roland Emmerich Godzilla.
Oh, I have no idea. But I wonder
it
what
has
you think about
it has
this.
its own theme song.
Yeah.
That no one cares about, but
Yeah.
a lot of
I
films
remember
did it.
I remember the 2014 Godzilla theme song because it's just a beat. Well, it was just like a melody or rhythm.
No, it definitely is. I think
it
may have even been like Jamiroquai is the one who does.
Sorry.
It's a name of a music.
Oh, okay. So that explains
guy.
it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamiroquai. I was like, that sounds like a made-up name.
No, it probably is a made-up name, but there's a guy. I think that's his name. There's a guy does. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, music videos were a thing for films in the 90s, apparently.
Just then, there, music videos were a thing.
Yeah. But yeah,
they're
Will
now
Smith.
adverts on YouTube.
I mean, at least the Men in Black one is a catchy tune. So, yeah.
Sort of similar to, I guess, to the Ghostbusters.
I was going to say
It's one that
Ghostbusters,
talks
yeah.
about the film. It's like,
Yeah.
it's obviously there's infamous themes, but usually most of them is diegetic or whatever. Because Predator has
Yeah.
quite an iconic one, but it's obviously that's another one where it's similar to the Godzilla one that I just did. It's like da 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 da.
No, but we're not talking about Hans Zimmer or John Williams here. We're talking about like pop artists doing some jazzy tunes for the film.
Do you think I'm thinking of rewatching it tonight, but I don't know. Do you think Will Smith did any music for iRobot?
No,
Because I know that it obviously opens with a James Brown song, doesn't it? Oh no, sorry, is it James? No, it's not James Brown. Song.
It's Superstition, isn't it?
Superstition by Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think it's singing James Brown song because I was probably thinking of like, you know what?
Look,
I'm just gonna shut up. But
we're all over the place.
I remember that Stevie Wonder did Superstition. Well, Stevie Wonder's Superstition played at the beginning of that film. It's iconic opening in iRobot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking of rewatching that tonight, but because it's similar era. I was wondering whether or not maybe it's kind. I guess it kind of doesn't work for the tone, but maybe like a credit song or something. But yeah, that's what another great Will Smith movie. It's such a shame we don't get those anymore.
No, it's a more serious one, iRobot.
Yeah. I suppose at the very least, differently to like Bruce Willis, where it's like, oh, that's a Bruce Willis film. That's pretty good. Back in the day, it's like at least like Will Smith probably still does like okay performances in his films nowadays. It's more because of the films he chooses to work on, really.
Yeah, I will say he does well. He's avoided some sequels to films, which is a good thing. So,
yeah, I mean, although that being said, he jumped ship. Yeah, he jumped ship on Independence Day 2, but he jumped ship on Independence Day 2 to be in Suicide Squad 2016, which was not a good decision. That was a lose-lose situation.
He should have said, "I'm not doing any films this year."
Yeah, he should have been like, "There's been a disturbance in the Smith Force. I'm going to resign for a year."
Yeah, but yeah, it's another classic one, comedy sci-fi.
It's
a fun film.
I think it's fantastic. It's as you say, it's fun. It's I mean, in terms of effects, I think the thing is that I haven't gone through like a fine sort of tooth and comb or whatever, and like really combed over it. I probably would find something to nitpick on it.
No, there's plenty. That's the thing with this film. I think it's not a perfect film, but it's also it's like, again, I would compare it to many of the other films we've spoken about.
I kind of like don't care if it's a perfect film.
Yeah,
it's a perfect film for me in that. Sort of similar to how, like, I don't think you've seen this, but The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is sort of a recent film that came out in, like, 2015. It's one of the few modern Guy Ritchie films I actually like. That film is kind of endlessly rewatchable. I kind of feel the same about this one, about Men in Black.
I mean, this is another, again, compare it to Predator, it's another movie where it's like, you can watch this many times, just have fun with it, not have any problems with it. You don't have to take it seriously. It's a load of fun. Yeah.
Do you think you'd rate this one above Predator? Obviously, we'll get into that in a minute, but
Predator is, again, it's verging on. There isn't much to nitpick with Predator, whereas Men in Black still has, there's bits here and there where it's like, they could it could again. There's always things.
It's real close for me though. I think. In terms of not in terms of maybe a score, because I'll get into that in a bit, but in terms of how I feel about them, like subjectively, they're kind of up there for me, kind of close.
Men in Black's not. It's a weird one for me because it's not always been. I've always enjoyed Men in Black, but it's sometimes I think about Men in Black and I'm like, I don't want to watch that. You have to be in the right mood for it sometimes. For me, it's like. Men in Black's not a film I can watch endlessly.
Whereas Predator kind of like forces you.
Yeah,
into
Predator.
its mood.
I could stick that on any time. So
It's like if you've done a shit and no, sorry, sorry, no. Okay, so I got the metaphor wrong from the beginning, but what I meant is like, okay, it's like when your dog does a shit, right? And if you're a bad owner, you rub their nose in it. That's Predator to you, but you've done the shit. Sorry, I got that the wrong way around when I was trying to explain that. That's what it's like. It's like we're gonna force you to learn this lesson that Predator is amazing and you should watch it all the time.
But the Men in Black is.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll get so. Yeah, we both recommend this film. We both think it's good. Yep. You got a score for me, Joe?
It's a difficult one. I again can't remember any of the other scores that I've ever done. Scores change all the time, but I'll give Men in Black a 7.5.
Fair. So that's a perfectly respectable score, I think, on our grades. Yeah, it's a difficult one because I want to give this a higher score than it probably deserves, but it probably for me, it's probably like an 8. I maybe go so far because I know I especially get into the weird decimals, but. I kind of feel like 8.2. That might be weird. I know that I've said like things like 9.7 before, and I know that we usually when you go into decimals, it's like a 0.5.
Look, you can have
8.2. I don't know why. I'm feeling 8.2.
You can have whatever points you want in this. So
I give it an 8.22222 because theoretically
2, 3 recurring.
Yes, exactly. Just the 2.
But yeah.
I guess that closes off our summer blockbuster season 2021.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a wild ride. Since Mad Max, I've been pretty excited every time I've done this stuff. This time it was a bit more stressful because we've actually had to deal with some time constraints this time.
I've been dying, but
Joe's been dying, and I've had to hold in my laughter every time it happened because I'm a bad friend. Well, actually, no. I suppose I'm a better friend for holding it in, but
yeah.
We've been 2 More Takes for this 2021 summer. We'll be back in autumn. For now, we're going to take like a little hiatus. We don't know how long it'll be, but because we've been posting consistently every fortnight for like 3 months now, so we're done with. I need to go feed my cat.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone, and listening.
Fuck
even.
Off. That's my exit.
Until next time.
Bye.